Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am really excited to bring this video to you guys today because many of you guys have asked me about the topic of this video many times. So I wanted to address the question, which is how do I budget or how do I survive living alone in London? For those of you guys that don't know who I am, hello, hi, how's it going? My name's Anika and I'm an American living in London, and I have lived alone in the beautiful city of London for the last 8 years. Now, to be really crystal clear, London is a very expensive city. I'm pretty sure if you've come across this video or you've watched any of my other videos, you probably know that London isn't a cheap city to live in. It's so expensive, or it has gotten so expensive over the last few years, that it's nigh impossible to actually live alone or have your own apartment or your own space. Most of the people I know live in London actually have either flat shares or house shares, or they are sharing the cost with partner, family, friends, etc. But I have actually lived alone in London for 8 years now, and over the last 8 years, it has changed a lot. The cost of living has gone up so much, and I know that it has really affected a lot of people, so much so that some people's rent and cost of living has gone up anywhere from 30 to 50% over the last 2 years. In this video, I want to take you through my monthly budget, what I actually pay for things, how I basically live on my own and manage it, and then also any tips and tricks I can share with you guys on saving money in the city, because like I said before, it is an expensive city to live in. So make sure you stick around till the end of the video to get all my tips and tricks. And if you guys are new to this channel and you've just stumbled across this video and you do want to see more tips of an American living in London and my life abroad, please make sure to hit that big red subscribe button and turn on that bell notification, because I love creating content like this for you guys. So let's jump into today's video. It'll be in 2 parts. The first part is going to be my monthly expenses breakdown and my budget and what I really actually spend as a person living alone in London. And then the second part of this video is going to be all about money saving tips and how you can survive on a budget in London if you are looking to move to the capital city. If you want to skip ahead to any part of the video, I'll make sure to leave timestamps down below. So as I've said before in the video, living alone in London is not so common, but it is completely possible, as I am someone who has lived alone in the city, and I have lived in zones 1 and 2. I've also bought a house, so it is completely possible, and I think that there are lots of ways to actually survive. I know it's tougher than ever in 2023 to really live with the cost of living constantly increasing, but it is totally possible, and I want to break down my expenses and be super true and honest with you of how much I am paying for living in London. So my first expense, which is the biggest expense for most people in London, is the rent or your mortgage. Now, rent will put you back about 50% of your take-home salary. I know this is crazy to think of, but when you look at your salary per year, per month, about 50% of that is likely going to go towards rent if you are living alone. I will give you examples of what I am paying and what I have paid in London, but if you choose to live alone, most of your salary is actually going to go to rent. So just be realistic of what your salary is and where you can afford to live based on that salary. So when I was living in zone 2 of London, I was paying anywhere from £1,600 to £1,800 for a single accommodation. Now, I actually had a 1-bedroom flat, and this was in a new build, and it had like a concierge service, and it had, key fob entry, so it was quite secure. Overall, it was a brand new build. It had great amenities. It was really centrally located, and anything in zone 1, 2, even up to 3 is going to be pricier if you are looking in that area. Obviously, the further you go out from the city center, the cheaper it is rent-wise. But being super clear, I paid anywhere from £1,600 to £1,800 per month for rent. I have actually bought a house in the last 2 years, so now I have a mortgage, and it is about £2,200. And overall, I see the rents in London currently, even for my previous flat, being about that amount, which is anywhere from £2,000 to £2,200 per month for a single bedroom new build kind of building. Now, you can obviously budget, you can find different accommodation, but for me, that's what suited me, and that's how much I paid in rent. I actually think that's pretty comparable to what you'd be paying in rent in other big cities around the world. But to be transparent, that is what I paid for a new build flat in Zone 2 of London. Now, the next thing that you are going to be paying for monthly is the utility bill. Now, this is totally different for every single person because it totally depends on the size of your flat, the newness of your flat. I have been in a new build, and a new build has better insulation, better windows, which means that it kept the heat in the winter, which meant less heating costs. And in general, it totally depends on the fit and finish of your actual flat and where you are staying. So take this with a grain of salt, but I will give you my rough estimates per month of what I paid for each one of my utilities. So breakdown of each of the costs. Now these are monthly running costs. My electricity was about £50. My internet was about £27 per month. The water is about £20 per month. Heating was roughly £30 per month. Again, I was in a new build and £30 was the highest I ever paid per month, and that was in the winter. So I did actually save a lot of money because the insulation and the building was just so warm that I paid little for heating costs compared to, let's say, a Victorian flat or an older flat. And then finally, there's council tax, and that was £80 per month. Council tax is a tax that you pay to your local borough in London or your local city council, let's say, and they take care of things like trash, they clean the roads, they deal with parking, all that kind of stuff, and it is something that is actually paid by each individual tenant. So it is something that's paid by yourself if you are renting in London. Now, quick tip, if you are renting and you're renting by yourself, there is actually a council tax discount. So you get a discount for being a single person in a building. So just FYI, if you decide to live by yourself in London, it is great to have that little bit of discount because every little bit of money saved is important. So the next cost that you can expect living in London is your transportation costs. Now, this is something that varies depending on how much you use it. But for my first 5 to 6 years of living in London, I did not have a car. So using public transport or the Transport for London network, the tube, the buses, the trains, etc., was the only way for me to get around. It is a very, very well-connected system, and it has increased over time, by the way. Every year, the prices go up due to inflation and just the government increasing the price. And so overall, it is pricey to use. I work from home primarily now, so I don't spend as much as I used to when I was going into an office every single day. But roughly my transportation cost per month goes anywhere from 60 to 80 pounds, depending on how much I actually use it, go out and meet my friends, use it on the weekends, etc. So I have quite a few money-saving tips when it comes to transport in London. First of all, if you are traveling often into work or having to use a tube more than 3 times per day, or let's say like more than 20, 25 times per week, it actually might work out cheaper for you to buy a weekly or monthly or annual pass. When you buy the passes, obviously they are going to give you a discount, but that cost comes up front out of your pocket. But just work out how often you're planning on using the tube, and if you are planning on using it a lot because you have to go into an office or you plan on being out and about in the city all the time, I would actually opt for a weekly or a monthly pass. I remember when I first moved to London, that was what I did. Now, another way to save money with the tube, if you do not have a weekly or monthly pass, you can actually travel off-peak. So when I was traveling a few years ago before the pandemic and going into an office 5 days a week, I actually used to travel off-peak. So peak travel is anywhere from 7:30 a.m., I think, until 10 a.m. And then in the evening, it's from 4:30 p.m. until 7 p.m., I believe. But double check the TfL website for those details. Overall, if you travel anytime outside of those hours, on a Monday to Friday, you will actually pay a lesser rate for every single time you tap in with your debit card or Oyster card. And what I used to do is I actually used to go to the gym in the morning before work near the office. So I take the train and the tube into central London at, let's say, 6 a.m. or 6:30 in the morning. So I was paying off peak, and then I would end up working out, going to the office. I didn't have to take the train again. And in the evening, I would actually either stay later at work or go have dinner with friends or walk around or do something, and I'd catch the off-peak train back home. This is a great way to actually save money. I know it doesn't seem like a lot because it's just like 10, 20, 30, 50p adding up, but every day that adds up, it actually saves you tons of money. The next monthly expense that I want to talk about is your food or your grocery bill. Now this totally depends on how much food you actually eat and obviously how much you cook at home, but I would highly recommend the cheapest way to obviously feed yourself and make sure you nourish your body is by actually buying food and cooking it yourself. I know in London it can be really tricky because there are so many restaurants and so many places to go out, but going grocery shopping, meal prepping, and really making sure you make the most out of the food you buy at a grocery store is probably the most economical way that you can also budget for a single person living alone. So normally I would actually shop between two different grocery stores. I would actually shop at a budget grocery store like Lidl or Aldi, and I would get the majority of my food there, but anything I needed that was specific or maybe like very, very particular, and also I used to get like my meat and other like dairy products from other grocery stores like M&S or Sainsbury's, which are a little bit higher end. But again, the balance between a budget and a nicer grocery store means that I was able to save in some areas and then splurge in others, which kept me within budget. Every month, I would spend approximately 150 pounds on groceries. And again, I would meal prep the majority of my meals, and I would be meal prepping my lunches. I would have dinner at home multiple times a week. All of that put together, it adds up and it ends up being more cost effective because with someone who lives alone, when you buy in bulk and you cook it all at once and meal prep, it ends up being cheaper per meal. Going out to eat for lunch or going out to eat for dinner, it adds up a lot. So the one place you can budget is your food and making sure that you cook at home and meal prep. So the last part of my monthly budget in order to live alone in London is usually my miscellaneous part of the budget. And this is like miscellaneous when it comes to things you're buying for your house or yourself or going out for entertainment. So in this part of the budget, I would spend about 250 pounds a month on eating out and going out with friends, drinks after works, entertainment, let's call it. And that was roughly how much I spent per month. And then for my personal care or clothing shopping or anything I needed from like the drugstore, anything I needed new clothes wise, I would spend about 100 to 200 pounds per month on that. And then the final part of this budget was like household shopping. So things I would get from Amazon for the flat or things I would just pick up like a new rug or pillows or towels, sheets, etc. Things that you just need in general. I would spend about 65 pounds per month on that. So moving in to part 2 of this video, which is my budgeting side of things. And now that you can see that what I actually spent monthly on my expenses and what it is possible living alone in London, how did I actually stay within budget and how did I actually survive all these years living at those high cost levels? So there are tons of budgeting apps out there. I will actually list a few on the screen right now. But for me personally, Monzo has been a really great budgeting app and everything's just built right into the app and it's super easy to use and really easy to delegate your money into the right places. So that has been really easy for me to manage my money. Another way I manage my money is truly through a spreadsheet. I know this sounds daunting, but all I would do is create a budget of all the expenses that I discussed earlier in the video, and I would put my budget or how much I thought I would be spending, and then the actual amount that I ended up spending so I can make sure I balance out and see how much I'm realistically spending versus how much I should be. My second tip in saving money or budgeting in London would be meal prepping. I already mentioned this earlier in the video, but it is truly the best way to save money in London. I know it doesn't sound glamorous because London offers so many food and drink options, and trust me, I get sucked into it myself, but even if you go out for lunch for a meal deal, or if you go and buy a $5 sandwich from Pret or something like that, what's gonna happen is all of that adds up over time, and actually you end up spending so much money on little bits of food. And buying it beforehand at the grocery store and like preparing it and bringing it with you into the office or just having meals set aside will save you so much money, like hundreds and hundreds of pounds a month. So I would highly recommend if you are moving to the city, I know it can be tempting and maybe your first month you do eat lunch out and you go out to dinners with friends, but in the long run, the best way to be sustainable and make sure you're able to budget living alone in London would be to meal prep. And the final tip I have around budgeting and saving money is there are so many free things to do in London. I know that's hard to believe because again, it's a big city, it's an expensive city, and more times than not, you're gonna wanna spend some money to do something. But in my first few years of living in London, I did so many things totally for free by exploring the city. Like the museums, for example. They are completely free for you to visit. You can wander them for hours. It takes up a Saturday or an evening or whatever, and it makes you feel like you've seen something new and accomplished something, but you don't have to spend any money. Another thing I did a lot, especially in my first few months of living in London, is I would actually buy a coffee, and I have the Pret subscription with coffee. So I actually paid £30 a month, and then that was just my coffee for the whole month. So I would take a Pret coffee, or sometimes I'd splurge with a Starbucks, and I'd just walk around a new part of London. Walking is free. You get to see so many sights, and I think that A, you get a bit of exercise, but B, you get an activity to do that is completely free in London. And there are tons of other places that you can go that are completely free. For example, the Sky Garden London, totally free to visit. And there's so many other like rooftop bars, rooftop places that you can actually go and you don't have to actually order a drink. So make sure to just have a little Google and check of other opportunities of free things to do, and then you won't have to break the bank. So that brings me to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing how I budget and live alone as a single person in London. I hope that it gave you guys some tips and tricks on how to really budget and navigate the undoubtedly expensive city of London. I know it might not seem easy, but it is totally possible, and I hope you guys got some tips, tricks, and inspiration from this video. If you did and you enjoyed it, please make sure to give me a thumbs up so I know to create more content like this for you guys in the future. And if you haven't already, please make sure to hit that big red subscribe button and turn on my bell notifications so you know exactly when my next video is going live. I hope you guys enjoyed me sharing my life in London, and I hope to catch you guys in my next video. Bye!